I'm Sev, and welcome to Alien Spirit TV. I'm a spiritual counselor, and I'm an experiencer. I created this series to expand your mind.
Hello from the Bermuda Triangle. So far, I have not disappeared, and I don't think I've entered a portal into another dimension. However, when you're here, those two things could happen to you. The Bermuda Triangle is also known as the Devil's Triangle because very strange things happen here. Ships disappear, airplanes disappear, and the most famous disappearance is Flight 19. It was a U.S. naval mission, and it was composed of 5 aircraft. And one day, all 5 of them just poof, disappeared into thin air, never to be found again. And in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, at the end, when the spaceship lands and opens up, these pilots come walking out. So could the Bermuda Triangle be a place of alien abduction? Could it be a portal to another dimension or another reality? The Bermuda Triangle does sit on a ley line. There is a magnetic grid around the Earth, and these lines are called ley lines. And on these lines, the energy, the magnetic energy and electrical energy is increased. Bermuda Triangle sits on a ley line, just as the pyramids, Stonehenge, the statues at Easter Island, the temple at Angkor Wat, and many others. Right now, I'm in the Bahamas on the Berry Islands. Last week, I was on Bimini Island for several days, and Bimini is believed to be where Atlantis was. Edgar Cayce predicted in 1968 or 1969 the stones of a temple of Atlantis will be discovered. And he predicted this in 1938. He died in 1945, and sure enough, in 1968, a pilot flying over saw this long half-a-mile stretch of big stones or rocks neatly piled. It did not look natural, it looked very man-made, saying that it was a very advanced civilization, and due to greed and arrogance and selfishness, it pretty much just blew itself up. There was a huge crystal in the middle of Atlantis, and when they got arrogant and narcissistic, they redirected the energies of that crystal into the earth, and that caused volcanoes. It is believed that that crystal is in the bottom of the ocean right now, and maybe that's what's causing these airplanes and these ships to disappear into thin air. We first read about Atlantis through Plato's writings in 300 BC. I personally believe there were a lot of writings about Atlantis in the Library of Alexandria, but Julius Caesar burned it down to bits. So we just have Plato's writings. I got the chance to go to the Bimini Road. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. We sailed over there, we dropped anchor right over the road, we jumped off the sailboat, and we snorkeled the Bimini Road. and it is half a mile long. I didn't snorkel the whole thing, but I did dive down and touch it and felt like a sponge. It's only about 16 feet under the surface, so you don't have to scuba dive. Snorkeling is enough. And from what I saw, it did not look natural. It looked man-made. The stones are limestone. They're huge, and they're just evenly aligned. And I haven't seen anything like it sailing around in the Bahamas, and no one's seen anything like it in this area. Why is it that there isn't more excavation here to uncover what the Bimini Road is? Well, that area is in the Gulf Stream, so it's kind of difficult to do excavation there. And it can be quite dangerous because of the currents and the waves. I personally believe that when we're ready for the answers, we'll know them. When we're ready to hear about who the Atlanteans were and what the civilization was about, we will get the information. We might not be ready to hear that information. I think as we individually move into a more spiritual direction and open up our mind to endless possibilities, I think then collectively we'll move into a more spiritual direction and be more open to the truth about what Atlantis was, what the ancient Egyptian civilization was. And one day we'll have the answers to all these mystical questions.
I came home last week, and my mind has been very busy asking a lot of questions. I like to ask myself a lot of questions and ask others questions that really don't have answers or have many answers to them. I've been thinking a lot about who were the people that lived on Atlantis. First of all, I do believe that Atlantis existed. As some people think that the story that Plato told was just simply an analogy of what happens to human beings when they get greedy and narcissistic, and that's it, that it was just a story. But I wonder if we believe everything else Plato says, why is it all of a sudden that there's this one thing that he says that's like, that was all make-believe. So I'm a believer in Atlantis. And I've been hearing about and reading about Atlantis since I was a little girl, and also about the Bermuda Triangle. And there are so many theories and ideas about where Atlantis was and who lived on Atlantis. For instance, some think that the beings on Atlantis came from another planet, and they came from an advanced civilization, and they came here to help human earthlings advance mentally, spiritually, and physically. If this is the case, and they were so advanced, then at one point did everything start to turn? And why did they start becoming narcissistic and not loving and destroy themselves? Why did that happen? What happened? I'm also very interested in the area of the Bermuda Triangle. It's on a ley line, and why is it that so many ancient civilizations built their temples on ley lines? There are areas of increased magnetic and electrical qualities. So when the body's in an area like that, does it increase its ability to connect with the higher dimensions? Is it easier to communicate with aliens in those areas? Is it more healthy for the mind, the body, and the soul to be in areas like that? I'm also a firm believer that we get what we can handle in terms of knowledge. And there are a lot of things about Atlantis that we could just not be ready to hear. For instance, if you had placed a laptop on the lap of someone from 1927, they would have just completely blown their minds. They wouldn't have understood it. You just go into this stupor of what? And maybe that's what would happen to us if we found out the truth about Atlantis or Egypt or all these other civilizations that are so puzzling to us. Let's also remember that there are lots of civilizations under the water. Many of them we haven't even heard about, and we may never hear about them. Who's to say that one day my little part of North Carolina here won't be under the water a few hundred years from now? We really don't know what the Earth's going to do. And no matter how mighty or powerful or smart or spiritually elevated a civilization is, you can't fight Mother Nature. I do believe that knowledge exists in a dimensional quality, meaning if we're stuck in this 3D matrix of thinking, we're not going to be able to understand other types of knowledge that the Atlanteans held or the Egyptians held that can only be understood when you are existing in a higher dimension. So it is said that Earth's in a transformation right now, going from 3D to 4D or from 4D to 5D, and there's so many different thoughts about this. But basically what that means is Earth has the ability to move into a direction where we can access knowledge that sits in the higher dimensions as long as we as individuals are doing the necessary personal work to advance our minds into the higher dimensions and not getting stuck so much in 3D linear thought. That's Comet, one of my two black cats. I'm going to do an episode about animals and how we can communicate with them in multidimensional ways. I have lots of stories about animals and how to communicate with them. I hope this episode, my first episode of Alien Spirit TV, I hope you found it somewhat interesting. I hope that it's exercising your mind and having you ask some questions and being comfortable with asking questions that you don't know the answers to. You know, there's some people who are not comfortable asking questions when they don't know the answers. And that doesn't mean, I don't mean that coming from a narcissistic place that they have to know all the answers. It's just that there are some people who like answers. And I don't think I'm one of them. I don't demand answers. I just like thinking about all the different possibilities. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm grateful.